Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at the evolving world of space exploration.
All right.
Specifically, we have two articles that are going to be kind of the jumping off point for our conversation.
Okay.
They both look at the rise of private companies in space exploration.
Right.
So, the SpaceX's and the Blue Origins of the world.
Yeah.
And how that's impacting government agencies like NASA.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a new era.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating shift.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing this huge transition in the way we think about and approach space travel.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's exciting. There's a lot of new things happening.
Yeah.
A lot of rapid advancements in technology.
Yeah.
But it also raises a lot of questions about, the ethics, the geopolitical implications.
Right.
The economics of it all.
Yeah. And who is space for?
Exactly.
Is it for, research? Is it for the benefit of humankind? Or is it, a capitalist playground?
Yeah, is it the next, Wild West?
Right. Yeah.
So there are a lot of different perspectives on that.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to try and unpack today.
Sounds good.
So why don't we start with kind of the elephant in the room?
Okay.
And that is that private companies, especially companies like SpaceX, they're really making headlines.
Yeah, they are.
With their ambitious goals and the speed at which they're innovating.
Yeah.
And one of the articles we looked at, it kind of dived into how these companies are helping to drive down the cost of space travel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about, cutting corners, anything.
No, it's really not. It's
Yeah.
about coming up with new and innovative ways to approach the challenges of space travel.
Right.
For example, one of the biggest things that SpaceX has done is focus on reusable rockets.
Oh, yeah.
That's been a total game changer.
Yeah.
They invested heavily in developing the technology to allow rocket components to come back to Earth
Right.
and be used again.
Right.
And that's something that, for a long time people thought was just too expensive and too complex.
Yeah.
But they've proven that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dramatically reducing the cost of each launch.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is that this innovation isn't limited to SpaceX.
Right.
It's rippling across the whole industry.
Yeah.
So we're seeing other companies adopt similar prices.
Right.
And that's making space more accessible.
Yeah.
Not just for governments, but for researchers, for entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
And potentially even for space tourists one day.
Yeah. So it's not just about billionaires joyriding.
Right, exactly.
There's real potential impact on scientific research and exploration.
Absolutely.
So-
Lower launch costs
Yeah.
mean more opportunities for science.
Right.
We can send more instruments, we can do more experiments in space,
Mm-hmm.
and that could lead to a boom in new discoveries.
Okay, so that's all really exciting.
Right.
But the other article that we're looking at, it kind of takes a more cautious approach.
Okay.
And it raises some concerns about the potential downsides of this kind of private space boom.
Interesting. What are some of the concerns?
Well, one of the things that I mentions is the issue of leaders from private space companies also holding influential positions within government space programs.
Oh, so kind of a conflict of interest, potentially?
Yeah, and the article doesn't accuse anyone of wrongdoing or anything like that. But
Right.
it just kind of raises that question of,
Yeah.
is there a potential for
Bias.
Yeah, for bias to creep in?
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern.
Yeah, and so critics of this kind of close relationship, they argue that it could lead to situations where the priorities of private companies,
Which are ultimately driven by profit.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
might influence decisions about government-funded space programs.
So instead of a mission that's focused purely on scientific discovery,
Right.
we might see a push for ventures that have a quicker financial return.
Yeah, like mining asteroids for precious metals, for example.
Exactly. Things that could be profitable in the short term.
Right.
But might not necessarily advance our scientific understanding in the long run.
Yeah, and with governments, facing budget constraints all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
the reliance on private investment in space exploration is likely to grow.
Yeah, that's a trend that we're already seeing.
Right, and so it raises this really fundamental question of,
Yeah.
will scientific discovery take a back seat to profit in this new space race?
Right.
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
And it's a debate that's probably only going to get more intense.
Yeah, definitely as the private sector plays a bigger and bigger role.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if profit becomes the primary driver.
Yeah.
What happens to those areas of research that are less commercially viable,
Right.
but still scientifically crucial.
Yeah, the things that might not have an immediate payoff.
Right, but could lead to major breakthroughs down the line.
Exactly. And those are exactly the kinds of things that might get overlooked in a purely profit-driven model.
Yeah, and it's a tough question to grapple with
It is.
because obviously, we want to see innovation.
Yeah.
We want to see, the space industry thriving.
Mm-hmm.
But we also don't want to lose sight of that core mission of, expanding our knowledge and understanding of the universe.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right balance.
Yeah, and this actually leads into another point that both of the articles kind of touch on, and that is the current lack of comprehensive international regulations for space.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West out there.
Yeah, it really is.
There are very few clear rules governing things like resource exploitation,
Yeah,
environmental impact liability in case of accidents.
a bit of a free-for-all
Oh,
moment.
yeah, so imagine like a scenario where a private company goes and claims ownership of a valuable resource on the moon or Mars.
Right.
Who gets to decide if that's legitimate?
Yeah. Who owns the moon?
Right.
Who owns Mars?
What happens if there's, an environmental disaster
Right.
caused by a space mining operation?
Yeah. Who's responsible for cleaning that up?
Right. Who's
Those are all questions that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
It's like we need a new set of, rules of the road, but for space travel.
Yeah, we need space traffic control.
Yeah.
And really what it comes down to is we need international cooperation.
Right.
Maybe even a new branch of law specifically for space.
Yeah. Space law.
It's a fascinating challenge.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also a bit daunting.
It is, and it's a challenge that's really intertwined with this very philosophical question of whether space should be considered a global commons
Yeah.
belonging to all of humanity,
Right.
or whether it's fair game for, corporations and nations to stake their claims and exploit its resources for profit.
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is a big question, and one that I think everyone listening is probably grappling with right now.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking about colonizing the moon or Mars, who gets to decide what happens there?
Yeah.
What kind of society are we building? Do the same rules and ethical considerations apply as they do on Earth?
It's not just a hypothetical question anymore.
It's not.
It's something we need to start thinking about seriously.
Yeah, it's like we're writing a new chapter in human history.
It's a whole new frontier.
But this time it's happening off-world.
Exactly.
And so with that in mind, I think it's time to shift our focus specifically to the challenges and opportunities of colonizing the moon and Mars.
Sounds good.
Because as these articles point out, those ambitions come with their own unique set of hurdles.
Definitely.
And rewards.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the key things that we need to consider as we contemplate establishing permanent settlements on these celestial bodies?
Let's dig into that.
Okay. We're talking about more than just, planting a flag and leaving some footprints.
Right.
We're talking about building actual livable habitats, establishing communities, maybe even someday cities on the moon and Mars.
This is an incredible vision.
It is. So what are we realistically looking at?
Here, both of the articles highlight some really fascinating and challenging aspects of this endeavor.
Okay.
We'll start with the moon.
Okay.
It's our closest celestial neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And, recent discoveries of water ice in those permanently shadowed craters at the poles have really fueled the possibility of a lunar base.
Okay, so we've got water ice. That's huge.
It is.
From what I understand, that means we've got the potential for breathable air,
Right.
rocket fuel,
Yep.
and of course, drinking water.
All the essentials.
Yeah, but even with the moon practically on our doorstep,
Yeah.
building a permanent base is still a massive undertaking.
It is a massive undertaking.
The lunar environment is pretty harsh,
It's incredibly harsh.
to say the least.
There's practically no atmosphere to speak of.
Right.
Which means you've got constant bombardment from solar radiation,
Right.
micrometeoroids,
Yeah.
and the temperatures swing wildly between, scorching heat during the day and incredibly deep cold during the night.
It's like the ultimate example of, extremes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you've got the lunar dust itself.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This isn't like the dust bunnies you find under your couch.
Right.
It's incredibly abrasive. It can damage equipment, and it poses some unique challenges for human health.
Wow. They're not exactly a welcoming environment.
No, not exactly a walk in the park.
So it sounds like even basic things like, taking a walk outside would be a major operation.
Yeah, you'd need specialized suits.
Yeah.
Pressurized rovers.
But I did read that the articles mentioned that this lunar dust, as much of a nuisance as it is, might also have some unexpected uses.
That's right.
Yeah.
Some researchers believe that lunar dust, which is rich in silicon dioxide,
Okay.
could actually be a key ingredient for creating building materials on site.
Oh, wow.
They're even exploring the possibility of using it to manufacture solar panels.
So in a way, the very things that make the moon such a challenging place to live could also be the key to our survival there.
It's like the moon is daring us to be creative.
Yeah.
To find innovative ways to use its resources.
I like that.
So yeah, it's a tough but potentially very rewarding location.
Okay, so we've got this picture of the moon as this kind of tough but rewarding place for a settlement. What about Mars?
Mars.
It feels like everyone's got Mars fever these days.
It does, doesn't it?
What's the reality check on that dream?
Well, Mars has definitely captured the public imagination.
Yeah.
It's a planet with a history that suggests it may have been much more Earth-like in the past.
Right.
Perhaps with liquid water, a thicker atmosphere.
And missions like the Mars rovers have given us incredible glimpses.
Oh, they've been amazing.
To its geology and its history.
Yeah, and they're even hinting at the possibility of past or even present microbial life.
Yeah, and we've all seen those stunning images from the rovers.
Yeah, they're breathtaking.
Those vast landscapes.
It really makes you wonder what secrets Mars might be hiding.
It does, but you're right. Mars has its own unique set of challenges.
Yeah, it does.
Even beyond just the sheer distance.
Getting to Mars is a much longer and riskier journey than getting to the moon.
Right.
And the Martian atmosphere, while present, is incredibly thin.
Right.
And it's mostly carbon dioxide.
And then there are the Martian dust storms.
Oh, yeah, those are something else.
From what I understand, they can engulf the entire planet.
They can.
And last for months.
Yeah, it's not exactly ideal weather for, scrolling around your Martian garden.
Not exactly.
And they're not just a nuisance either.
Right.
They can block out sunlight, which could cripple solar-powered equipment.
Right.
And they pose serious health risks to humans as well.
Yeah, we're talking about fine abrasive particles that could damage lungs and electronic systems.
It's a serious hazard.
Okay, so we've laid out some of the challenges of colonizing both the moon and Mars. They both sound incredibly tough.
They are tough.
Let's flip the script for a moment and talk about the potential rewards. What is the big wins?
Well, on a fundamental level, it's about pushing the boundaries of human exploration.
Right.
And ensuring the long-term survival of our species.
It's like having a backup plan for humanity.
Exactly.
A safe haven in case something catastrophic happens to Earth.
It's a sobering thought.
It is, but a powerful one. Yeah. And beyond that kind of survival aspect, I imagine there's incredible scientific potential.
Oh, absolutely.
Being able to study these worlds up close to unlock secrets about the solar system, planetary evolution, maybe even the existence of life beyond Earth.
Think of the breakthroughs we could make in fields like astrobiology, geology, physics, even medicine.
Yeah, and then there's the economic potential.
Oh, right.
Both the moon and Mars are rich in resources that could be, vital for Earth.
Yeah.
Or for building future space infrastructure.
They're talking about resources like helium-3 on the moon,
right,
which could be used in fusion energy.
Rare earth elements on Mars that are crucial for advanced technology.
It's a whole new era of space industry.
Yeah, an economy.
With jobs and resources that we haven't even imagined yet.
But I think it's important to acknowledge the ethical and social considerations that come with this expansion into space.
One of the articles brought up this question of who gets to go.
Right.
Will these off-world colonies be accessible to everyone?
Right.
Or will they just become exclusive enclaves for the wealthy?
Or the scientifically elite.
Exactly.
And how do we ensure that these colonies are governed fairly and transparently?
Right.
Will they be independent entities?
Or will they remain under the jurisdiction of Earth-based nations?
It's a whole new frontier of political science.
It is.
And social organization.
We're essentially talking about creating new societies from scratch.
Yeah, and let's not forget about cultural preservation.
That's important.
As we establish these colonies, how do we ensure that the cultures and values of the people who make those worlds their homes are respected and allowed to flourish?
It's about striking a delicate balance between honoring our shared human heritage and allowing for the emergence of new and diverse cultures.
Right, shaped by these unique environments.
Exactly.
It's an incredible opportunity to rethink social structures and create something truly unique.
It is.
But with all this talk of building new societies, we can't lose sight of our responsibility to be good stewards of these celestial bodies.
We need to consider the environmental impact of our actions and strive for sustainable practices.
We have a moral imperative to protect the, delicate ecosystems of these worlds, even as we explore and potentially colonize them.
We need to minimize our footprint.
Right.
Develop closed-loop systems that conserve resources, and ensure that any settlements are self-sufficient in the long run.
It's a tall order.
It is.
But one that's worth striving for.
Absolutely.
It seems like every step of this journey, from the initial technological hurdles to the social and ethical considerations, it really pushes us to reconsider our relationship with our planet and with the cosmos as a whole.
It's a profound and humbling experience.
It is.
This push to explore and potentially colonize other worlds forces us to confront our own values, our limitations, and our incredible potential as a species.
We're not just talking about the future of space exploration. We're talking about the future of humanity itself.
Precisely. And as we delve deeper into this uncharted territory, we need to keep asking ourselves those tough questions about who we are, what we value, and what kind of future we want to create for ourselves.
Right, and for generations to come.
Because the choices we make today will have ripple effects that extend far beyond our own lifetimes.
So, with that in mind, let's turn our attention back to you, the listener.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for someone who isn't an astronaut or a billionaire space entrepreneur? We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the rise of private companies to the potential for lunar and Martian colonies.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it's clear that we're entering a new era of space exploration. But what does all this mean for, the average person?
That's a great question, and one that I think a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of space travel and these grand visions of colonizing other planets.
Right. It all sounds very sci-fi.
It does, but the truth is that the impact of this new space age is already being felt here on Earth.
Okay, so even if we're not personally blasting off to Mars, this space boom could have a real impact on our lives.
Absolutely. One of the most immediate effects is the growth of the space industry itself.
Oh, okay.
And that translates to jobs.
So we're talking about new career opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Even for people who aren't, rocket scientists or astronauts.
Right. The space industry needs all sorts of people.
Okay.
Engineers, software developers, materials, scientists.
I even read that there's a growing field of space law.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's fascinating.
As we venture further into space, we're going to need lawyers who understand the unique legal challenges to come with it.
And then there's space tourism.
Right. That's an industry that's really starting to take off.
Literally.
And it's going to create all sorts of new jobs.
Wow. It's exciting to think that, we could be on the cusp of this whole new era of innovation and job creation.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time.
And it's all spurred by this, this push to explore the cosmos.
And it's not just about the economic opportunities either.
Right.
There's something about space exploration that captures the imagination.
Yeah, it's inspiring. Yeah. It makes us want to think bigger and reach further.
These missions remind us that we're not just bound to this one world.
Right.
That there's a vast universe out there waiting to be explored.
And that sense of inspiration, it can fuel creativity.
Yeah.
In all areas of human endeavor.
Absolutely. I think every time a rocket launches, it's a reminder that we're capable of achieving incredible things when we set our minds to it.
Yeah. And even if we're not directly involved in these missions,
right.
We can all be a part of that sense of collective achievement.
I think that's a really important point.
Whether it's following the latest discoveries,
yeah.
learning about astronomy,
or just gazing up at the stars on a clear night.
Right. There are countless ways to connect with the cosmos.
And those connections can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, they can spark our curiosity, challenge our perspectives.
They remind us that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
Okay, but let's not forget about some of the concerns that we've talked about.
Right.
While the potential benefits of this new space age are huge, it's crucial that we proceed thoughtfully and responsibly.
Absolutely.
The articles we looked at, they both emphasize the need for clear international guidelines and cooperation.
To ensure that space remains a peaceful and collaborative domain.
So no free-for-all on the moon or Mars.
Hopefully not.
No space cowboys claiming asteroids for themselves.
Well, we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We need to address issues like resource ownership, environmental protection, and conflict resolution before they escalate into major problems.
We've seen what happens when those things are ignored here on Earth.
Yeah, and we don't want to repeat those mistakes in space.
It's like learning from our past to create a better future.
Exactly.
But this all sounds like, a monumental task.
It is a monumental task.
But one that's essential.
Absolutely.
For the long-term success and sustainability of space exploration.
And it's not just a task for governments and space agencies either.
Right.
It's a responsibility for all of us.
We need to engage in these conversations.
Yeah.
Ask tough questions about the values that will guide our actions in space.
Hold our leaders accountable for making responsible decisions.
We're all stakeholders in this endeavor.
Whether we realize it or not.
The choices that we make today will have a profound impact on the future of space exploration and on the future of humanity as a whole.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
we
want to leave you with a question to ponder.
All right.
If you had the opportunity to invest in a private space venture, what criteria would you use to determine if it was ethical and responsible?
It's a question that really forces us to think beyond just the potential for profit,
right?
To consider the broader implications of our actions in space.
What kind of legacy do we want to leave in the cosmos? What kind of future do we want to create for ourselves and for generations to come?
Those are big questions.
They are big questions, and there are no easy answers.
But they're questions that we need to keep asking ourselves.
Yeah, as we continue to explore and push the boundaries of human ingenuity.
The future of space exploration is not predetermined.
Right.
It's shaped by the choices that we make today.
And each of us has a role to play in shaping that future, even if we never leave Earth.
So keep looking up, keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
And keep dreaming big.
The cosmos is waiting.
It is.
And on that inspiring note, we'll sign off from this cosmic journey. Until next time, keep exploring.